That's the consent I was talking about. So
good. That's clear.
That is very clear. As long as you get consent these days, it's all okay.
No touchy.
Oh, little gropey. So, we're back. It's Talking Shop, Hot Tag Reviews. I am Rob Campbell alongside.
This feels weird not having him here.
Yeah, that's right. Jobber number 2 is not with us, you might have noticed.
Yeah. So, in that case, I'm Daniel. You're my wife nowadays. Cornfield.
Okay. And our guest this week is... Here comes the judge. Here comes the judge. Everybody knows that. Here comes the judge. Best entrance music ever. It's the judge.
Thank you very much. It's very good to be here. I say here, good. It's very good to be in my kitchen, connecting to you digitally.
This is what working from home is these days in 2021, I believe we're still in. So,
nearly, yeah.
Don, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I was waiting for you to say something then. Sorry.
Oh, all right then, mate.
This is a pretty slick operation. It's.
I'll never pause again. That's it.
Need to keep this train running.
He's had his chance. He's fucked it in the opening 30 seconds of the match. And I'm calling to go home already at this point.
I've been in matches with Don before. I know how it goes.
Exactly.
I go over the top rope and nearly break my back, but
tonight's Cobra Libre is sponsored by Tilt, also known as a rum and coke stew. But how the hell are you?
I am doing okay. Just like you, got back on the wagon at the weekend for the first show, and it was exciting and dramatic and borderline terrifying, but everyone's alive and we've got through it. So, yeah, bring on the next one.
Absolutely. It was very, very strange to be back in front of an audience, but you just can't beat that feeling. As soon, the anxiety leading up to walking through that curtain, for example, for me, especially at somewhere like APW where I'm not a regular at that promotion. Like, I'm not established like some of the other people on that show. So all sorts of demons are going through your head. They won't know who I am. They won't give a fuck. They don't care. They won't.
That's never
cheer
stopped
me.
You before.
That's exactly right. I'll try and make the most of what I've got. And then all of a sudden they're like, yay, because they're dead excited to see some wrestling. And it's like, wow, I've missed you guys. Let's fucking do this. And that's exactly what we did.
Makes everything hurt less until the next day. It's
Yeah. 2 days later, I'm still in pain. Life goes on, right?
I can't get the arm past here, but
really?
I'm sure I'll get into ring shape.
As we go along.
The bumps and bruises will start forming a hard carapace around me again, and I won't feel them. Yeah.
Yeah, that is fair. I mean, for those watching on YouTube today, there's a war wound from the weekend. I believe that's from running the ropes.
That's an interesting tattoo.
Yeah.
You've not got the plague, because that looks more like a plague wound.
Well, that is the concern. I mean, you have had a test, but
negative test.
Yes, it's
now. I'm worried that bubonic plague's going to start in your arm now. It's like you've gone past everything else. It's like bubonic now. You've gone to that level. Jesus.
But you can do the one-armed wrestler gimmick. It'll be fine.
But it was really nice knowing you guys.
So I'd love to say the same.
Wow. there's the fucking heel coming out of him. He's a heel, motherfucker. Straight away. It's brilliant. In case you didn't realise, the judge plays a heel.
Hi. I'm a naturally nice person by nature.
Yeah, so Judge, you have been wrestling quite a long time. I don't want to go right back to the start and talk about everything, but just give us a brief.
That's disappointing. I've made a list.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. 21 years I worked it out to beat him in preparation for this.
Wow.
That's quite a long time.
1 year. Yes, that's a very long time. When and why did it all start then?
So I'd imagine this origin story is very familiar to lots of people of our generation, but it was the Hulk Hogan video cassette with him standing next to the blue bars and him suplexing the big boss man off the top of the cage.
Wow.
That was the attention grabbing moment, and it was like, that looks quite interesting. Let's watch as much of that as I conceivably can and annoy my parents to the nth degree for the next 20 odd years. So yeah, Hulk Hogan, and doing Hulk Hogan pile driving the big boss man as well. I was like, how can that possibly work? How is he not dead? I was all in pretty much immediately. Yeah, big Hulkster, big little Hulkster rather.
Do you know, that actually surprises me? Like, you being a Hulkamaniac back in the day, brother. It just actually surprises me.
He was the man. I think when you start out, he's the character, and he's amazing, and he's, you're all bought in. And it's strange, you go through a cycle, because obviously then it's like you go through the cynical phase where, well, Hulk Hogan's rubbish, isn't he? All these Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, that's where it's at. And then having gone full circle to, as a worker yourself, you just look back on that thing of stuff and go, my God, he is an absolute genius.
God.
Doing so much. The selling was just brilliant, and the timing and the innate charisma and all of the little things he did that you don't even notice. I mean, just truly a god. I mean, unbelievable. Literally. Yeah.
It's crazy, because when you put a top 5 list together, right, of wrestlers, Hulk Hogan's very rarely on a top 5 list. Yeah. Very rarely. And that's, for good reason to an extent, because in ring ability, he didn't compare, like you say, to the likes of Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, for example. But when you consider everything that the man did, how he lifted the industry, how he sold copious amounts of merchandise that you can't even wrap your head around, that he had to keep in a basement level in Florida. And it was packed with absolutely all sorts of lunch boxes, action figures, posters, you name it, he had it. And to this day, when you think of professional wrestling, especially American wrestling, Hulk Hogan's one of the first names that you're going to think of.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, very formulaic, but that was what the game plan that they were running. That was the formula. And you can't deny the success, just in terms of the tickets drawn and the money drawn and everything else. You can be analytical from a wrestler point of view and say, he's coasting, he's just doing the same thing every night. It's very low effort, very low energy. But the amount of nights he was working, the amount of shows he was getting in, it's a different world, and you can only analyze things in the window in which that they existed. Yeah. It's not fair to look at a Bruno Sammartino match and go, well, that's a bit boring. There's quite a lot of bear hugs. Well, you can, but you've got to look at it in the context of what it was. And for its time, in its little window, Hulk Hogan absolutely captured me and made me a wrestling fan.
Amazing. And like you say, you mentioned Bruno Sammartino, a kid who, or a teenager these days who is to the current product of WWE or AEW, whatever they're checking out. It could be TNA, who knows? I'm not one to judge. And that was a pun that was meant for you. Maybe I'll get a few more of them in, who knows? But you're quite right. You go back and watch a 60-minute Bruno Sammartino match and you're like, this is fucking shit. Where's the pizza cutter? That's what I want to know. Where is the pizza cutter?
Yeah, I know. Bruno and Nick Gage, I mean, worlds apart there, really, aren't they?
Crazy. The way that you're killing the business, kid. so I'll go on, Don.
Actually, I've got a question. So what do you think about the modern product now then, like in comparison, like to, like you're saying, from like sort of the Hulkamania era to sort of more modern?
The in-ring work is a billion times better. Yeah. The product is really interesting, exciting, particularly if you go outside the formula of WWE. If you look at what AEW is doing, for instance, where the athletes aren't necessarily better, the wrestlers probably aren't necessarily better, but the fact that they're being given free form to go down the structure and to play with the expectations of a traditional WWE formula match, and that makes it more interesting and more exciting. Now, from a character point of view, from a mic work point of view, there aren't as many good talkers as there were back then. But in some ways, they don't have, because of the need to sell tickets and to get the next town up and all, and because the importance of that is lower, it's always going to happen. You know, you've probably got much more realistic characters when you've got Chris Jericho talking about, you know, and he's a rock star, but he brings a bit of reality and he brings a bit of himself into it a little more, which again, some of the older ones did, but it's still, I think that right now is a really good, exciting time to be a wrestling fan. As long as you're willing to step outside of the WWE bubble.
Yeah. It's nice to have the option now, though, because I remember not even 10 years ago, your options was WWE. And then if you was like really a fan, like you go to Impact or even Ring of Honor. After that, you'd really need to start hunting them for like the indies. But it's nice to actually, the internet's definitely helped with this. So it's just opened a world of wrestling.
Well, you can watch everything. I can after this conversation tonight, I can go and watch Dragon Gate, or I can watch Pro Wrestling Noah. I can watch some New Japan. I can watch some New Japan from the 1960s. I mean, it's just the world we're living in is amazing from a content point of view. Everything is readily available. Or I can go and watch classic judge matches from the last 20 years as well. I know what I'd rather do, certainly. I'll just leave it at that, though.
We know what you'd rather do too, and to be fair, I'd watch it along with you, especially if it was like the Judge versus RC Chaos, for example.
Yeah, no, I know that hardcore match was something else.
Yeah, that one was fun. To be fair,
I have watched that gif of me catapulting a bin across the ring into your head about 500 times. You'd think it would get less funny, but it really doesn't.
It really doesn't. The accuracy, like just the timing, everything about that was just perfect. Absolutely.
I'm going to make a public apology at this occasion. I'm very sorry for hitting you in the face with a bin.
Wow. Fuck, I didn't think I'd ever get that. And now I've got it on a recorded Zoom meeting. So here we are.
Evidence, now it's over. Never take it.
Thanks for joining us, Stu.
This entire podcast was set up for just that one occasion.
Just that
You've been working this for months just for that apology. Yeah, that's good. Well, you should have asked. I would gladly. It did make a nice clang though, but you know,
it was great. It was great. I didn't need an apology, but thank you nonetheless.
Okay, you're welcome.
But back to then you becoming a wrestler, then I suppose, Judge.
Okay.
How did that happen? Like,
so I saw an
Hulk
advert.
Hogan, being a Hulkamaniac to where?
Someone put an ad in the local paper saying wrestling training at the local sports centre, and I was like, could be an opportunity to be mugged, or it could be a real thing. But I was feeling slightly self-aware, so I dragged my little brother along, who was, was it Simon? It was Simon, my youngest, Falcon, bird of prey, who's also kicked you in the head several times.
Yep.
So, I dragged him along to be my excuse if it turned out to be a load of 6-year-olds playing on a trampoline. But actually, it was someone who'd been trained by Jack Taylor of Leicester fame. Okay. Jack was... He was old during the World of Sports days. So he was basically a fossil. But I mean, a smart guy, knew absolutely what he wanted. A little bit perverted. He would run shows in Leicester, and that was sort of my first experience of getting out in front of a crowd. And he would always go, "Tops off, lads," before the starts of the matches. So you wouldn't be wrestling in a t-shirt in a Jack Taylor show. He would insist upon everyone. It was creepy at the time, and retrospectively about 20 times creepier. So I don't like to think about it too much, but it did happen.
It's a deep, dark moment.
Yeah, tops off, lads. It's like,
what a catchphrase. How was that not a t-shirt?
Tops off, lads.
If you wore the t-shirt to have it on a t-shirt, you'd have to write it on your skin or something. What way it would work.
So that was in front of anything from 50 to a couple of hundred people every month in Leicester, not knowing what we were doing really. The person who was running the training school, who like I say was one of Jack's trainees, didn't know his arse from his elbow. And within about a month, we'd taken over the training school. And now we didn't know any better, but we certainly had more common sense than he did. So it sort of just
goes a long way, doesn't it, in wrestling? Common sense.
Yeah, and so we sort of ended up taking that over. we ran a training school in rugby for 15 years afterwards. So, and that's where War came about. Not the Wrestling and Romance from Japan, that we can't take responsibility for that, but the Wrestling Association of Rugby, which was a big deal for us, where we ran shows at my old school, my old secondary school, Lawrence Sheriff, for again about 11 years. We ran shows there. So yeah, a good time, a very good training ground for some talented people. That was the venue where Spud, aka Drake Maverick, had his first ever win as a wrestler, because I'd seen him at K-Star shows and we asked him if he wanted to come and work the War show, and I put him over and he couldn't believe he was going to win. It was a great little moment for him, and I hear he's done quite well, but post that. So I'm not taking all the credit
well for himself.
Yeah,
not all the credit, but 5% wouldn't be a bad thing to see in your bank at the end of the day.
No, he won. Well, no, I don't think he's in much. I don't think he's on much, to be honest. And who knows with all the contract cancellations. Anyway, let's not worry about it. I'm sure he'll do fine. He's a very talented fella.
Fine.
Oh, absolutely.
I love Spud. He's a great guy.
He is a great guy. He is. And the first time I ever met him was when he started doing his rock star Spud persona. So the Bon Jovi was on. He was, coming down looking like fucking the lead singer of Guns N' Roses, never mind fucking Bon Jovi. But it was over and it was a great gimmick and he knew exactly what to do. And I'm sure when you put him over, he wasn't the rock star.
He wasn't. I first saw him at a K-Star show in Birmingham where he came out dressed as Spike Dudley, replete with the little tape on the middle of the glasses, riding a 3-wheeled scooter.
Fantastic.
He obviously did the acid drop as a finisher, and I think he still does on WWE. So so that hasn't changed. But he was, and that was in the same class as Rob Hunter, Jack Storm, Morales, Dave Mastiff. So I mean, quite a lot of talent came out of that group. That was K-Star Birmingham.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had a lot of people, locally who are still involved in the wrestling business talk very highly of War and the promotion. Even when I was breaking in and still hearing about it, and people would be like, "Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Storylines it makes sense. It's perfect." And obviously, getting to know you over the years, it makes perfect sense if you were running it. Why a show would be the way it is.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We did put a reasonable amount of effort into trying to make self-contained stories. So our expectations of our audience is it's unfair to ask them to follow stories. So we ran 4 or 5 shows a year. So it's unrealistic to get them to follow complicated storylines from show to show to show. So we would do show-long storylines, opening angle at the start, either before or after the first match, that would pay off at the end. And the champions would maintain from show to show. And we'd pretty much try to have that mentality. We'd occasionally do a few things that dragged over from episode to episode, but for the most part, it was standalone shows. Get them in, get them entertained, make sure they leave happy. That was the mentality. Heels don't need to win unless they need to win for a reason, because kids, which is the predominant audience for that, didn't want to see their good guys lose. And it's just ego to say, oh, well, we'll split it up and put the heels over here, there, and everywhere. You don't need to do it.
No.
If you're building someone up, then fair enough, there's a justification for it. But as a general rule of thumb, put the good guys over. Keep the crowd happy.
Do you think from there to where we are now that's changed at all?
No. I think it has, but I don't think it should have. I think there's an awful lot of people doubting themselves and double thinking and trying to be Vince McMahon's or Tony Khan's when they're trying to book complicated, complex storylines that are multi-layered, that have got nuance, which the promoters understand and the wrestlers might understand, but the crowd's it's gonna go over the heads of the crowd for the most part. Now, again, if you look at what Luke Twig's trying to do with is it SPW, the sort of the sister
SWA
company
or
to
APW.
SWA. So
Yeah.
SWA. That where he's trying to feed more smart fans and people who are going to travel for star names and things like that. That's a different sort of thing. He's trying to do that indie thing, which probably lends itself to the necessity for those longer term stories because you've got a fan base that's going to buy in. But for Average to a degree, FCW, or for War, certainly, focus on what works. Get them in, get them entertained, send them home happy, give them a coherent story that they can, so they understand and like the characters or dislike the characters, keep that consistent, and just make it fun.
Yeah.
Because that's what people are coming paying their money for.
Absolutely. Fun and entertainment for sure.
Yeah. Like, again, I don't want to belittle people who are trying to do the big picture stuff, but I think you need to think, when does this stop being for them and when does it start being for me and the boys?
Too sweet. Hulkamania runs wild, brother.
Indeed. Yeah, that's all you need.
Doesn't work for me.
3 punches, a big boot and a leg drop, and send the crowd home happy.
And a hip replacement every 5 to 10 years as you get a little bit older.
Running repairs. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. You know, the car's got to go in for an MOT every year, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Just do the earthquake vertical splash, and then you haven't got the bump to worry about because the opponent's chest takes the brunt of it. So I've heard.
So you do hear, and my lungs are still squealing.
Oh, no. I think Rob's froze. Oh, wait.
Go for it.
Rob, you back? Sorry.
We are sponsored by technical difficulties.
That is true,
it's
yeah.
a thing.
So
he's just preserving energy by being really still. I do that a lot.
It's like a predatory thing. You're just waiting and it's always like trying to attack people.
The attack doesn't come from the front; it comes from the side.
You've mentioned a lot of like Japanese promotions, which like I'm starting to get into Japanese wrestling myself personally. Is there any like Japanese wrestlers that you were a fan of, like as you started to get into wrestling, or is there anyone that you're watching now, particularly?
So there was some the early Dragon Gate stuff with people like Seema and Naruki Doi. I'm just saying names now. Masato Yoshino, the whole crew. Indeed. No, the Karate Boy. The whole Dragon Gate crew, which was it's very much a self-contained dojo system of bringing people in and training them in a very particular way to do it, which meant, I mean, it's not too dissimilar from the WWE mentality, which you bring everyone in, teach them the same system, and then you can put the jigsaw pieces together and it'll always work. Yeah. The difference is that the WWE system is dumbed down to a level that it's got mass appeal and anyone can be trained to do it. The Dragon Gate system is super high intensity, all about precision and timing and speed. The stuff that they were doing in early 2000s is the style that you see on AEW now. They were literally the precursor of the Young Bucks style. In fact, the Young Bucks went to Dragon Gate and brought a lot of that stuff back because they learned how to do high impact, it's the Ultimo Dragon thing of mixing Lucha with Japanese strong style. Yeah. And coming out somewhere in the middle. So that is an amazing period. And any of those 6-man tag stuff, where you see the precision and the speed, and they just don't blow spots despite having 73 spots in a match. It's just remarkable. The Japanese, the classic All Japan, Dr. Death, Steve Williams, Stan Hansen, Masawa Kawada, Kobashi, strong style stuff, the style that actually killed pretty much all of those people, because you shouldn't get dropped on your head every single night. It's a bad thing. Do not do that thing. But it's some of the best wrestling that you'll ever see in the world in terms of capturing passion, believability, primarily because they're hitting each other as hard as they freaking can in the face. But that stuff is amazing. New Japan for the last 3 or 4 years, in terms of the G1 tournaments, has been some of the best, most cutting edge wrestling in the world. So there's lots of good stuff. And that's the thing, like I said earlier, it's all relatively available to you. You can use Google, you can find all this stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you just pay them 999 yen and you've got like New Japan from however long
Yeah.
ago.
And what's that? I mean, it's a cup of coffee every month. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Of coffee in the big time. Honestly, you are an encyclopedia of wrestling.
I'm
Wrestling.
literally reading. I'm reading this all from a piece of paper in front of me. I've never even seen a Japanese wrestling match.
That. Ask this question. Got him.
You've done this for 21 years. You can't not pick up some stuff. But...
You study the game literally more than probably Triple H does at this point in time.
No, he studies the game a lot while looking in the mirror, sort of saying, "God, I wonder if Vince is going to let me do anything today. Yeah. I wonder if Vince is going to sack half my roster this evening." Yeah.
Time to bring out the leather jacket, I think.
Poor bloke. I think he should go. I think he should go to AEW. I think that would be a twist in the tale. I think that would be
you
very
imagine
funny.
Triple H working for Cody Rhodes. Can you imagine that?
You know why
that's not going to happen.
In my head, I've got this idea that it's going to be like, you know, when Vince came out as the leader of the ministry, and it's just all of a sudden, it was me. Like, please book that. Like, it's so stupid, but it'd be the best thing.
Tony Khan takes a mask off, and it's been Triple all along. That's that's a twist. We did not see that coming.
That's how you set the business on fire. That's how you get people on Twitter.
Thanks for your money, Mr. Khan. Thank you. Appreciate it loads.
Lovely.
We'll digress a little bit from wrestling and just talk about you in general. Now Martin's not here to do 7 questions, so we're not gonna be asking you 7 questions about a specialty subject today, unfortunately. However, I know, can you believe it? Yeah. However, we have talked about, another passion of yours that I'm really interested in learning about a little bit more, because I don't think I've really ever got it, I suppose, or had a conversation with you about it. But board games, right? So
I'm a little skeptical about having these conversations, because I do keep my wrestling and my board gamey things tend to be separate.
Yeah,
because wrestlers think board games are stupid, and board game people think wrestlers are stupid. It's a terrible situation where, should ever the two mix, it will just be a big mess. But yes, it is a hobby of mine that I've been doing for some time.
And okay, so a hobby that you've been doing for some time. So how long have you been into board games? And
10 years probably.
Okay.
Okay.
And I play Monopoly, Game of Life, that sort of stuff. But what do you play?
So you must have heard. Have you heard of Settlers of Catan, for example?
He has.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my gateway drug. In the same way that Hulk Hogan was the gateway drug into wrestling, Settlers of Catan was my gateway drug into modern board games.
Okay.
And without boring people, post World War II, the board games became a big deal in Germany. Because they didn't want to play Risk for some reason. Yes. I can't think for why.
They always
the idea of playing. No, I mean that's it. The idea of playing games based around war and destroying things and killing things became more and more unappealing to the German family market. So a thing they were originally called German games, then they're called Euro games, popped up where games are more about constructing than destructing. So Catan, for example, is made the most breakthroughs. It sold 20 million copies or whatever. It is a game where you are building a small village on a map, and you are racing and competing to do so. But at no point can you set fire to each other's houses. You're not tearing down what your opponent builds. You're just building better than them, faster than them, and potentially blocking them off. And that's sort of the mentality of what a Euro game is, where you're building as opposed to destroying. So after having been introduced to that kind of thing, I sort of fell down a rabbit hole and found out that there are 5,000 board games released every year, which is where we are now.
Wow.
I've been to Essen Spiel, which is the world's biggest game fair. It's based in 3 aircraft hangars in a rather dull industrial town in Germany called Essen. And they have 250,000 board games in that shed.
Wow.
Some of which I'll know, some of which I won't know, and it's just like the biggest shopping spree that you can imagine.
Wow.
So it's like a whole new world that no one knows exists. But if I had to say what I like about them is that it uses a different part of my brain. So I work pretty hard over the course of a day. It's nice to come home of an evening, and then I'll go out and play board games in a pub with some friends, and it's a way of relaxing. Again, it's still stimulation, it's still using your brain, it's still engaging with it, but it's just a different sort of mental process.
Yeah, it's just nice to put the day behind you. It's like, I'm going to concentrate on this and only this for a couple of hours. It's like a bit of catharsis though, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And the way I'm wired, my brain, I can't have any inactivity for any length of time. I need constant engagement and mental process. Otherwise, the darkness seeps in, and no one needs that. So for me, I need that. I'm not a reader. I don't really read books. I watch films. I watch a bit of telly, but board games are my thing, learning and teaching and playing board games.
And it's a very expensive hobby though, isn't it? Like, once you sort of start going down that road.
Well, okay, so this is going to sound very specific, but only because I looked it up earlier because my wife asked. I have 357 board games, which is a lot. But what I tend to do is I'll buy a lot, but then I will flip them. And the game's got to be particularly good, very good, to stay in the collection at this point. Otherwise, they get flipped, and I can probably sell them for about 75%, 70% of their value from purchase. The idea being that way I can buy a lot, try a lot. Ones I like, stay. Ones I don't like, get moved on. Okay. So it is expensive, but I don't drink, so I don't. That's my pub money. Yeah, that's my And during lockdown, we haven't done anything. So yeah, it's not the cheapest hobby in the world, but it's my thing. So, and wrestling actually pays for itself or makes you some money on top of that. So, it's this is my outgoings hobby as opposed to the wrestling, which like I say, where if things go well, I get paid real live money for it. But not as far as the tax man is concerned. So I shouldn't be recording this.
Where's Jim Hunter when you need him?
It's all goes
hypothetically, of course. Hypothetically.
Hypothetical money.
During lockdown, then obviously, like you say, we haven't had the pub or anything like that. So, based on that, is this been your platform to do board games? Have you Zoomed to play, or?
So there's lots of online portals that allow that to happen, which I've done. I've played with my brother more than I would have done because he's up in Melton Mowbray. Okay. So yeah, I've done that sort of thing, which is good. And since the lockdowns eased, obviously we're all back together again as groups, and same as it was. But it was, lockdown was weird. If I'm telling the truth, I absolutely loved lockdown. Yeah, it was. I did. Sociable person anyway. I hate most people, so the necessity to be able to stay inside and not go and see them is less of a punishment as you might imagine than you might imagine rather. So yeah, I managed to get through the entire MCU on Disney Plus. That was quite good.
Achievement unlocked.
Yeah, watched a lot of films. Did a little bit of cooking. I think everybody did. It's going to be weird. We're going to look back on this as a very strange period in our lives where everything was paused. Well, for some people, I mean, some people still had to go to work and plow on through. But I was furloughed for at least 6 months. So it was that little weird 6-month mini vacation that I took. And again, I have a complete empathy for people who were working the whole time. But yeah, it was almost a nice break amongst all the death and destruction.
Yeah, which is definitely what the world unfortunately became over lockdown. There was a reason we were there, and hopefully we're now seeing the back end of it, of course. And back.
This has got very dark very quickly.
Yeah.
Hey, it's okay. This is what we're about here on Talking Shop. We're not just here to talk about wrestling. We like to get to know the man behind the judge. And how
I'm not sure that's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
We need to hide these are the things you need to hide from people, otherwise they don't like you. As disguise the reality. Put
People
myself
don't
in a
really
box.
like me anyway, and I tend to do all
Oh,
right.
I can't believe that. You are a social butterfly, my friend. Yeah.
believe.
I've not met
Well,
anyone who has openly said that they hate Rob.
Fucking hell.
I mean,
that surprises me.
that bar's quite high, but
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm going to say
What have they said? That's the question. He's a fucking Teletubby in that purple singlet. It's good job
no,
he's
they've
changed to a
said
black one.
that.
Yes.
But they didn't say they hated you.
No,
That's a
okay,
different
fair
thing.
enough.
You're a very likable fella.
Well, thank you. Thank you, good sir. I do try. But I also hate people, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So
who has time? So don't get me wrong. There's some individual humans that I quite like.
mm,
My wife, for example. No, but there are lots of individual humans that I get on with. But people as a whole are the worst. They're reactionary. They make stupid decisions. They violently attack things. They're tribalist. They put themselves, it's all about me and not about them, when them could be a person who's arbitrarily on the other side of a border that's been arbitrarily designed by a government. I mean, it's just, people are so stupid. So yeah, avoid the people. Stay with the humans who you like.
Yeah. I say, if that mob mentality, though, they just become children.
yeah.
It's just horde, take everything, stay away from me. So, no, totally.
Well, I mean, without wanting to go too deep, if you look at what's happened to American politics, and they have been split and severed so far apart that there's no element of a middle ground that they can sit on without wanting to stab each other in the face.
Yeah.
It's mad. It really
also,
is.
did you drink bleach as the president told you to? Because if you did, you're a fucking idiot.
No, I was injecting it into a hard line. I think that's much more efficient. Cuts to the chase a bit quicker then. Wow, that actually happened as well.
Yeah, the only thing that comes to my mind is the train spotting scene when he sinks into the carpet.
Yes.
That is the only thing I can think of when hearing that.
Yeah, but he was the president for 5 years or 4 years.
The China virus.
It's amazing. It's amazing. If it wasn't for the virus, he might have won again. If it wasn't for COVID, he might have won again.
He did.
Yes, he thinks he did. Yeah.
I demand a recount.
Not getting it. So,
no. Spoiler alert: the Russian says you can't have one.
Oh.
So, I mean, on that note, you said you watched a lot of movies, so I'm going to do a quick fire round. That's what they call them. Just on movies, and I just want your opinion, like just a yes or a no. Do you like the movie? Don't you like the movie, sort of thing? Okay. And
do you want any context or just yes or no?
Oh, you can give context because you'll rationally explain your context, which is good.
I am nothing if not rational.
There we go. Shawshank Redemption.
Masterpiece. Although there is an awful lot of Shawshank before you get to the redemption. I wish that was my line. That's a Mark Kermode line, but still, it's
a good line. It's a good line.
Yeah.
The Godfather.
Not my favorite. It's just a little ponderous. I saw Goodfellas before I saw The Godfather, for example, and Goodfellas is a laugh riot. Godfather is, I mean, you can feel the quality, but it's just a bit ponderous. I'll probably get stabbed in the face for saying that, but I'm definitely on the Goodfellas over Godfather.
Italian fans, to be fair, at the minute. So
okay, good,
excellent. You're all right for the minute.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight.
Excellent. Probably the best superhero movie because it's not a superhero movie, because it's basically Heat told in Gotham City instead of LA. And it's beautifully shot, great performance from Heath Ledger. It's really, really good. It's better than The Dark Knight Rises, but The Dark Knight Rises is a much better film than most people, and I include the Bird of Prey Falcon in this, give it credit for. It's about the only thing that we really argue about incessantly. He is wrong, I am right.
Of course.
As is always the case, so that's all right.
Pulp Fiction.
Great film. I love the extraterraneous commentary about stuff. you can just have a scene where two characters talk. No one's really done it though since. I mean, there was Reservoir Dogs, there was Pulp Fiction. It's a Tarantino-y thing. He does it a little bit in his later films, but they're talking about a milkshake and they're saying so much more about it. It's almost art housey. It's almost, but it works in Pulp Fiction. It doesn't feel overly pretentious, which is again not something Tarantino is particularly good at in terms of not being pretentious. But it's a really entertaining film, high energy, high octane, quite popcorny. But just the quiet moments where it does little conversation pieces give you so much meat on the bones. It's really good. I love it a lot.
Lord of the Rings.
It's very long. And actually, I told you so before. Well, I wasn't a book person, so I've never done the books.
No.
So my only experience of Lord of the Rings is the Peter Jackson films, and I love them. And I got to the end of the first one, and I was like, "Where's the next bit?" And then it was, "Oh, good, it's only a year away." And then it reminded me of how it must have felt going to see The Empire Strikes Back first time round, and then it coming to the end and going, "Well, that's a nice middle bit of the story. I've now got to wait 2.5 years for the final bit." So, yeah. But no, I like Lord of the Rings. I'm a big fan.
Okay.
Halloween.
I like it. I'm not a big horror film fan.
Yeah.
But I can respect what it's doing. The music's my favorite bit of Halloween. The John Carpenter score, which is terrifying, and it still gives me the creeps now. The keyboard riffs that everyone knows. You just play those first three things, and it sends a shiver. So yeah,
it does.
It's even more than the visuals. The audio of Halloween is genuinely scary.
Well, I think that's the thing with John Carpenter films in general, though. Like the scores always seem to suit the piece so well.
He's got total control, and things like, I mean, Assault on Precinct 13 without the soundtrack is a fine actiony movie, but the soundtrack elevates it. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
We'll do the last one of this list, and then we'll ask a separate question about something that you mentioned earlier. So, Forrest Gump. I'll end on that one because we love that one here.
So, I am torn on Forrest Gump because I think it's a very well made film, but I don't love it. I think bits of it are really clever, and bits of it are schmaltzy, pretentious bollocks. And it's almost to the film's credit that it manages to do so much schmaltzy bollocks, and I still come out at the end quite liking it. So it achieves more than it should do, given its limitations. I don't love it. I know some people do. Are you one of those people, Rob?
Oh, yeah, well, I just keep running and running.
That's not even true.
No. Only when I see the ice cream truck.
We've never done the crisscross spot for that very reason.
I've done it with people.
Have you?
Mark Clark has fucking made me do that quite a few times, to be fair. In the opening spot as well, like, let's try and blow him up. That's good, Daddy's all right. Good job, I can keep up with him. Probably not now.
Did it work?
No, not back then. It didn't. It would probably work now. Work now. And bonus question before I ask you the actual question that I wanted to ask you was, what's your favorite Adam Sandler movie, and why is he Happy Gilmore?
It's Punch Drunk Love, because that's the only film he's done which isn't complete garbage. Apart from I haven't seen the one you got Oscar nominated. It didn't get Oscar nominated for, but should have done the
Diamond
Hidden Gems one.
That was it.
Yeah. But no, Punch Drunk Love is an amazing film that takes everything that he does, which in every other film is really annoying, which is short-tempered, and just makes it into a beautiful, sweet love story. So no, I'm not a big fan. I suppose guilty pleasures a little bit. There is something. Happy Gilmore is a good example of the genre, but Punch Drunk Love is his best film.
Okay. You mentioned no, it's absolutely fine. This is your opinion, not mine. No judgment here.
That's my thing.
So you mentioned obviously the Marvel universe earlier. You watched it all on Disney Plus. If you were to pick one out of the series, I guess, that you really love, which one would it be and why?
I'm going to cheat and choose 2. And
Okay.
look, I think you have to choose. I'm going to put Infinity War and Endgame together, which again sounds like I'm cheating, but as a ending chapter of a 20-year 24 film thing, unheard of, virtually impossible to be able to construct that and build that somewhat organically and bring it all together and stick the landing in a very satisfying, surprising, because it took risks. It didn't need to take risks. If you look at the last Star Wars film, that is them not taking any risks whatsoever. They ran the tropes and they did what they did, and it finished, and it was fine. And again, I didn't come out with any deep emotional feeling, positive or negative towards it. It was just fine, right? What they did with Endgame and Infinity War and Endgame, was take all of the strands that had been put together, like I say, over 20 years, and pull them together into a very satisfying conclusion that didn't feel like it cheated. No one had a random swing of character in the last moment, which is convenient to make the narrative work. There were no cheats. It just did what it did, and it hit it, and it was brilliant. And a wholly satisfying end where it felt that you could go and watch those films and just watch them and enjoy them, and they're fine. But if you've done the 20 years, if you've put the time in and you've invested, there is a richness and nuance that comes out, despite the fact it's a giant 400 million pound blockbuster. There are bits that come out of those films which reward the people who've paid attention and understand it and like the characters and know the characters and get a feel for their backstory, and just like little things between like Hawkeye and Black Widow that don't matter in the grand scheme of things. Watch it in isolation, it's fine. But if you know that and you've seen them grow, and the little chats that they've had about Budapest and things like that over the course of, all those films, it just makes it an even grander achievement to hit it and make something which was unique and special and brilliant, and probably is unsurpassable in the medium. I do get the feeling that their biggest problem Marvel's going to have now is that they've peaked. They've done that 20-year cycle. How the hell do you top that? So there's that. But the other one is the Captain America first Avenger, the first Captain America one, which again, the reason I'm flagging it up is because there's lots of other ones that are first Avengers and all that sort of stuff are quite well lauded, but some people are quite snippy about first Captain America. But I love the period setting. It has a realness to it, and it has you're dealing with a super soldier, but at no point does he feel indestructible. There is a sense of vulnerability there all the way through. So that's for a different reason, but that's where I am.
Anything to add to that, Don? I agree with that assessment
completely. It's like one of my favorite TV shows is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And for the exact same reason you said about the MCU, that you've got these little toys and these little nods that when someone references, you're like, I get the reference complete, but it doesn't take away from it. It's like, if you don't get the reference, okay, it's a throwaway line. It might still be funny in context to that moment, but it gives you something as a bit of a reward. And I think that might be where. Yes.
And funny that you say that, but that's exactly what, to tie all it all together, that's exactly where wrestling can work as well.
What a triple threat match this is. I love it.
There you go. Because you've got wrestling. Wrestling works exactly the same way, in so much as you've got people joining it all the time and they've got their own little isolated bits and bobs. But when wrestling's working at its best, and I use like the Adam Page, Kenny Omega story that they've been weaving in for the last 3 years or 2, since they started 2 years, and we'll probably go on another 2. Again, in isolation, you can join that story at any point, but because we've been on that journey with him, and that's exactly what they're trying to do here, there's enough story and character stuff and character beats where everyone's consistent all the way through, so that you have a basic understanding of how people are going to react when this happens, because we know what their constitution is and we know what their character is. And that's where wrestling works at its best, where people who have invested and they do know the characters, it's like the moment that where someone says something to someone and then the reaction of the crowd is, "Oh," like if someone right now was to come up and just say to Roman, if The Rock was to come up and say, it doesn't matter what your name is to Roman Reigns, right? That would be a moment where people would go, "Oh," because you know what you've done. You've set something in motion, and all that's where wrestling works at its best, where you've got that flat level stuff. This is the entry level stuff, but you've got the depth. You can go and do more, and because it's all in context, because wrestling never stops.
It's soap opera in the respect of like, okay, so someone wins a title, like we're saying with the Adam Page, Kenny Omega story. Yeah. We know where the build's going to end up. We know what the payoff's going to be, but it's the road to get there. But even when we get there, it's like, it's not the end of it. It's not a film. There'll be other shows. It's like, well,
yes,
where do you go from there?
Which is the MCU problem. Yeah. I mean, the following on from, Endgame, how do you go on from that? But yeah, you're absolutely right. But the thing is, I trust them that when Omega finally, I presume it'll be Omega finally dropping the title to Page, that'll be the payoff that we've all been waiting for. Yeah. And the thing is, you want to go and see Page's title run. You want to go and see what the next chapter is for him. So yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Very exciting time. Very exciting.
All about the storyline gimmicks. Fantastic. We're gonna wrap it up in a minute, but we'll just 2 questions from me, and then we'll go home, so to speak. What board game are you playing the most at the minute?
Oh, crikey. Okay. Well, this is just stay put for a second. Hang on.
It's become real.
I'm trying to tell with the blur what's showing in the blur.
I'm fond of tying everything together.
Here it is. Nice.
It didn't.
It's the blur gimmick, but we can tell it's Marvel Champions. There we go.
That's Marvel fantastic. Champions. It is a card game featuring Spider-Man and amongst other people.
Spider-Man and friends.
It is a very satisfying game, which actually isn't a Euro game like I spoke about earlier. It is a game about punching people in the face, but it is cooperative. So you and other people take one hero and then they fight those heroes against a villain. For example, earlier this evening, myself and my wife played Black Widow and Hawkeye, and we beat up Rhino.
Nice.
So it was a good day. So yes, that's one of the ones that we're enjoying at the moment.
Today is a good day. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
And wrestling. Let's end on wrestling.
Yeah.
Where now for the judge? What does the future hold for?
You mean not in the specifics? Well, okay. So I am 42 years old now. So I would probably say I'm in the last third, maybe the last quarter of my wrestling career. But my style, as you both know, is relatively durable. It's very important that I can take the bumps and I can get up and get down for the babyface. Right? It's really important. If I can't do that, then the whole style match fails. Because if my beatdown is slow and somewhat boring on purpose and it's a grind, you need to be able to get up and get down and shine for the babyface.
Yeah.
Now, if you'd have asked me this before I'd had my comeback match last weekend, I would have said, I hope I can still do it. I know I can still do it. I was up before he was, and he's 18, 19 years old. So
fantastic.
I can still get up and get down at the moment. When the body gives out and I can't do that anymore, I'm going to have to quit, because I'm not going to be one of those people who my selling is I just and wade into the ropes for the whole match and then maybe take a knee as the big finale. That's not going to be me. If I can't bump, if I can't throw myself like a cannonball into the corner, if I can't do that stuff, I'm going to have to stop. But until that happens, I want to carry on because I love it. Good. Absolutely love it. Yeah. Passionately. I want to plan matches. I want to work with people who I've never worked with before. And I want to work with people who I've worked with loads and come up with new stuff and old stuff and tie it all together. and tell stories and engage crowds and get people to really shout yay and people really shout boo. And when I kick out at 2.999, I want them to swear at the referee because that was 3. I want that energy. I want that power. It's the best thing. There's nothing else like it in the world. Nothing else like it.
In a bottle.
And I don't think there's probably a better explanation of that feeling than you've just given right there. That's giving me a little bit of goosebumps just to hear that passion.
It's just
in your explanation. It's so amazing. Like,
and you do it, and you do it over the course of the whole match. Everything that you do from that opening lockup, that opening set, sets up the stuff at the end. And if you do it properly and you do it well, you've got them on the hook. And you know when you haven't, when you screw up, when you finish the match and the pot wasn't quite right or they didn't move in the right places, the only person who screwed that up is you. And that's why you have to watch your stuff back, and that's why you have to learn it, because I love creating those sort of bubbles of emotion I had. There was a period where I was working main event scene as the champion for Venom. I was working main event scene for Wolfram, and I was working main event scene for Bagridge for FCW. And I was going through what it takes to be a main eventer and putting on main event style matches and trying to craft that emotion stuff and doing the bells and whistles and having the run-ins and the ref pulls and the distractions and all that sort of stuff, and using those things. So without going off on a tangent, the year-long run that we had with Sizzle, Saul Adams, to set up the title.
Dave, you don't know anything about Ukrainian football.
That's him. That's everyone's favorite celebrity. But that year-long program that I went on with him, where we teased it and we teased it and we built it and we built it. And this is an example of where you can do that ongoing storyline because you've got the same crowd month after month after month. But that's in the macro. And then in the micro, in that individual match, where you come to the near falls at the end of it and the crowd is nervous because you've screwed him over so many times. He's been done over so many times. You've had the outside interference and he's fought off the outside interference. He's dealt with a ref bump. There's nothing else that can go wrong. The whole shooting match is clear, and he comes along, he hits his big move and he gets the win. The crowd goes wild. It's just the perfect thing. Just the perfect thing.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to see you down the road doing your thing many a time. Because the passion that you've just delivered there is a lot more passionate than a lot of the people in some of the locker rooms that we've been in over the weekend, I would say, for example. Some
but Luke tries really hard. I mean, don't
shooting on Basham. You can't help it, can you? You absolutely love to shoot on Basham. It's fantastic.
Well, he is astronomically boring. I mean, if you ever listen to any of his promos, he's
the one, right?
He's basically a coma. He's a walking, talking coma. I mean, yeah. But apart from that, I really like the man.
He's all right, isn't he? He's not too bad.
He's all right.
Coma.
Yeah.
Maybe we can give him some promo lessons. We'll get him there. There.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's too dangerous. We'd have to do it as a trio, because if he started talking to one of us, it might knock us unconscious. And if there's no one there to put us in the recovery position, I mean, disaster walking, At least you can get a jab for COVID. No club cure for Basham.
Well, Don's impressed. A round of applause. Look, it has been absolutely amazing just talking to you over this past God knows how long we've been going.
Crikey.
Around an hour, I would imagine, which like, I could go for 2 hours with this pace of conversation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You are welcome. Don't be surprised if there's not another invite for a second round, because I feel that there should be more to discuss, and there probably is. But for now, the people can wait for that. Okay. We'll build that story. And I've been Rob Campbell alongside
Daniel, your fracking toaster cornfield.
And guest
Stuart Platt, aka the Judge.
Here comes the judge. Everybody
Bye-bye.
knows it. Here comes the judge.